What's up everyone? In today's video, we're going to talk all about using flash on your Fujifilm cameras. Let's get right to, oh wait a second, and I have the lovely Rachel here with me. Say hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi. All right, let's get to it. All right, so before we get into this any further, a couple of things. Number one, although this video is designed and geared towards my fellow Fuji fans and Fuji flakes, this is for you because you've all been asking for it. There are, however, quite a few things, almost everything actually, that I talk about in this video will apply no matter what camera brand you're using. So if you're using something else, give it a watch. You're going to gain a lot of valuable wisdom no matter what. Now the photos in this video were taken with the Fujifilm X-T5 and all of the pictures were taken with this flash, which is a Godox V1 flash. Now the first thing that you need to know if you want to buy a flash for your Fujifilm camera is you have to make sure you get it dedicated to your camera. So what that means is that every camera company, if I can get it to focus on that, every camera company has its own specific terminals on the bottom of the flash where it meets the hot shoe of the camera. So if you buy the wrong flash, like for instance, if you buy a flash that's designed for a Canon camera that Godox makes and you put it on your Fuji camera, the whole thing will explode. Now, I'm kidding, but you might break it. So you gotta make sure if you're buying a flash like a Godox, for instance, that makes flashes for pretty much every brand, you gotta get the one that has the little F on it for Fuji. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is the menu in your Fuji camera for setting it up to use a flash on it. We're not going to discuss every single feature or every single mode in there because this is really geared towards those of you who are just getting into it. And then at the end, I'll give you a little bonus tip that has, a little bit more of a complex way of using flash. But I do want to go over the basics of the flash menu. So the first place to start is to go into the menu of your Fujifilm camera and you're going to go to the flash menu. Now, it's the little lightning bolt for flash. When we go into that menu, let me just get mine so I can see it here because I've got tons of screens happening. You're going to see a number of modes. It'll either have off or M for manual when there's no flash attached. But when you attach a dedicated flash like the Godox, you're going to have all these other menus in there now because the camera automatically will communicate with the flash once it's put on. So you have TTL. Now we're going to start here because TTL means through the lens, and it just means the way that the flash meters with the camera and is basically your fully automatic mode. If you have no experience using a flash, start here. That's where you want to start. Then we have M for manual, which obviously means you can manually control the entire flash. And then there's one other thing that I want to talk about in the menu, because if you put it on M or on TTL, for instance, and you click down, you have this option called sync. Now that's where you want the camera to sync the flash, meaning you can have the flash go off first curtain, which means at the beginning of the shutter, which is normal. So if you're taking regular pictures, you're not trying to do anything fancy, it should be either at first curtain or at auto FP, which we'll talk about in a second. But first curtain means the flash fires right when the shutter fires. That's normal everyday shooting. Second curtain sync means that the flash will fire at the end of the shutter. So that allows you to do some interesting techniques and fun stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That's our little bonus tip. And then you have auto FP, which is also HSS, high-speed sync. Now this is a very useful feature because you can have the flash sync at any shutter speed now. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at your Fuji camera and you have an old school shutter speed dial like an X-T5, it says 250X. So the X means the synchronization speed. That means that's the speed that the shutter will line up with the flash. If you go above that shutter speed, the flash and the shutter won't line up and you get these weird black bars in your frame unless you put it on high-speed sync. Then that allows the camera to sync the flash at pretty much any shutter speed above that. The caveat is that as the shutter speed increases, the flash output decreases. So that's what you want to keep in mind. But that mode is really good if you want to take pictures outside on a bright day, but you just need a little flash to fill a person's face. That's one place where we really use high-speed sync. Once you have the flash on the camera, if I press this button, and you can see the flash, I don't know if you can read that, but it's going to scroll through manual, multi, TTL. So all of your functions will happen through the flash now. You don't have to constantly access the camera's menu. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some shots with the flash on the camera, just pointing directly at our subject. This is the way, if you're just getting started, everyone does this at first. We'll see what it looks like, and then we'll talk about why you'll see professional photographers not do that as their go-to move. But, all right, so Rachel, I just want you to kind of like lean onto that chair a little bit. Yeah, you can put both arms up there. Try and pretend like you're actually enjoying this. Good, there you go. All right, good. Now, it's hard to take a bad picture of Rachel, so there's that. But, you know, I'm going to wind up doing it with my horrible skills. There we go. All right, so I got one. That was okay. Now, I'm shooting on TTL, which is fully auto on the flash. And I'm just changing my aperture. I have it at the 1/250th sync speed. I'm changing the aperture to get the exposure more or less right. I like that. But here's the problem. That's a nice shot of Rachel. Now, but the problem of this is, how do I get rid of that? Is that when you have the flash directly pointing at your subject, it's just creating a very flat light. So there's not a lot of dimension to it. And you get some weird shadows behind your subject when you shoot like this too. So this is why that's a very nice shot of Rachel, but the lighting isn't great. So this is why we do different things. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to bounce the flash. The most common way to bounce light is off of a ceiling. That's why the head of your flash will angle like this, so you can bounce the light. So let's bounce the light off the ceiling. Very important, make sure if you're bouncing light off a surface, the color of the surface will reflect back on your subject. So you want to bounce off a white surface so it doesn't contaminate your color. But if I bounce off the ceiling, I also want to open up my aperture because there's going to be less light because it has to travel the ceiling and then back. So let's try. So I'm opening up. I was at F8 or F11. Now I'm going to try around F4. We'll see what that looks like. Yeah, and Rachel, you just do your thing. Right, now right away, you could see this is a much more flattering, like this is a beautiful shot, Rachel. Check it out. Can you see it? Nice, okay? So now you'll see that when you bounce the light, you're getting a much more flattering light. Now, I already introduced the V-flat, so some of the light is also coming from here. So bouncing it off the ceiling, it's hitting here, it's coming back to her. So you have to think of the direction the light's coming from. So let's just do a few right there, because that's kind of nice. I like it. It's simple, but it looks a lot more high-end. It looks like a portrait photographer. Think like a tall back and like really lean towards there. Yeah, just like that. And give me some of those kind of like serious vibes. Good, and good. Now you can give me like a little bit of the smile like that. Good. And can you put, yeah, there you go, right there, good, beautiful. Now, can you put both hands on there? Yeah, and I want you to kind of like, just jam your neck forward just a little, good, and get your chin slightly down. And we can bounce this way too. Let's see what that looks like. Good, and I kind of like a little less serious than that, so go ahead and smile, good. Yeah, I love it. And just like, how about like a touch of a smile? And now can you have one hand kind of, your other hand? Yeah, no, just like that, right there. Good. Big smile, cheesy, good. Because Rachel, she loves to smile. She's kind of a cheese ball, right? A little bit like me. Good. Good, very nice. Now, you'll see we're getting much more flattering images. The light is much nicer just by sort of bouncing it. Very, very, very flattering and very nice. Right? Rachel, you were worried at first, like these pictures look terrible, but it's because I want to show people how not to do it. Now that we understand a little bit about using the flash on camera, let's talk about using the flash off of your camera. And this is where most photographers are going to go for most of their shooting. The problem with using the flash on the hot shoe of your camera is that you're very limited, even with the bouncing, you're very limited with the direction that the flash can come from. The solution is to take the flash off your camera and get yourself one of these. This is a trigger which basically will fire your flash remotely. Again, you have to make sure it's dedicated to your camera. So if you get the Godox trigger, it has to have the little F on there for Fujifilm. Then when you turn on this menu, it mimics the menu on the flash, and now I can control every function of my flash from this little trigger, and I can put this somewhere else. The beauty of taking the flash off your camera is now you can wrap the light around your subject. Instead of it hitting them directly and the limits that a bounce has, now we can have it come from any direction and create a real wrap of light, and that's how we get depth in our portraits. So we've taken the flash off the camera, we put it in a large umbrella, and now with our trigger, I'm going to shoot all manually. So I took the flash and I put it on manual using my trigger, and I'm at 1/4 power. And I'm using f2.8. I'm still at the camera sync speed, and we're going to see what that does. And just one light, sort of at a 45-degree angle. So Rachel, same thing, just smile. Good. There we go. Very nice. Good. And I'm going to move around just a little bit. And I want you to kind of put one arm up on there. And yeah, and I want you to turn your body this way just a little bit. And can you flip your leg cross? So cross the other way. Good. Just like that. Good. For this, I want you to kind of face directly towards me. Yeah, just like that. And kind of put your arms out and kind of lean in just a little. Yeah, just like that. Good. Good. Very nice. And can you just angle your head towards the light just a touch? Good. Right there. So now we're going to put this white barrier back in here, if it doesn't fall. And we're going to add some fill light. So now we can still bounce the light even though it's not on our camera. We're going to bounce it again. The light, it's going to come in here, it's going to bounce off of here, and that should fill in a little bit and help us to tone down those shadows so it's a little bit more even. Let's just see what that looks like without changing any settings. So right away, it really looks beautiful now. It's very much more balanced, more subtlety to the shadows. And let's get even a little bit more if I move that in. And we still have shadow detail, but now it's like a little bit more subtle. Good. Beautiful. And now I want you to look up towards the light. Right there. Good. Give it like a little bit of like angry eyes at the light, like it's pissed you off for no particular reason. Give it a little smile, though, with the angry eyes. Good. Good. Now, when you see, here's another thing that's going to be so cool is when you have your subject look towards the light, now it's going to be a much more even, kind of flattering light. And it looks really nice. So the last thing is that I never will light like this. So this is just try something a little different, because really what I would probably do is this and that, kind of really like super feathered. Let's see what that looks like. That might be good. Don't yawn. I know it's boring. It's not that boring though. Yeah, good. And take the other hand and kind of, good. And fold this in, good. And bring that other hand forward a little bit so we can see that floppy sleeve. Rachel loves the floppy sleeves. Cool. And now look this way, kind of aloof. Good, like you're too cool for school. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you can take this hand and put it back here. Yeah, right there. Beautiful. Here's what we've done now. We've flipped our V-flat around to the black side, and you could see that the photos that you create by having negative fill instead of the positive fill are much more dramatic now. And then the other thing I did for my Fuji friends that are watching, my fellow Fuji flakes, is I started using some of the Fujifilm simulations. So those are going to look awesome right out of the camera. So I tried some with Acros, and I love the green filter, and then classic chrome, and the classic chrome really looks dynamite. So that's another thing you can do, just like you do out when you're doing your street photography. You can do that in the studio, see how they look. I still take raw plus JPEGs. So I have the raw file in case I don't want to use the film simulation, but it's a super easy way to give your photos a cool look in studio. If you made it this far, it's time for the bonus tip, which is using rear sync. So your flash is set to fire at the beginning of the shutter cycle. That's the normal way it'll work. But if you set it to second curtain or rear curtain sync, what that means is the flash will fire at the end of the shutter. So this allows you to do some interesting effects. So in these photos, all we did was have some continuous lights because we wanted to blur them. And in order to blur them, we used a slow shutter speed, like 1/5 of a second or 1/8 of a second. And then you literally move the camera as you fire the shutter, and the flash will go off at the end and freeze the person, but you'll still get some cool draggy effects. So give that a try, and there's a really great tutorial by Manny Ortiz where he really goes in depth on that, which I will link in the description below for you. All right, well, I hope that this introduction to using flash on your Fujifilm camera was informative to you and maybe even a little entertaining. I wanted to leave a lot of B-roll in there just so you can get an idea of how I interact with my subject, because at the end of the day, learning all this technical stuff is incredibly important. We must do it, but really the most important thing, if you want to be a successful portrait photographer, is to connect with your subject and know how to work with people. Using flash on your Fujifilm camera is not that hard. I know that a lot of us think about Fuji cameras and we think the natural light photographers and we think street photographers and people who are not really shooting in a studio or on location using strobes. But that's not the case. Lots of us do it, and I want you to hopefully, after watching this, have some of the mystery removed from what it's like to shoot with flash on your camera. Almost everything we talked about outside of the menus and outside of using Fuji's native film simulations will apply to anyone. Before I wrap up, of course, I want to thank my partners and friends at B&H Photo. They've been great partners to me. If you're going to buy a piece of photo gear, buy from B&H. They're the biggest camera store in New York, and they ship everywhere, and they're awesome, and I love working with them. And if you use one of my links in the description below, that will show them that people are actually watching my videos and that there's a reason for them to sponsor me. So go do that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For those of you who really want to become professional portrait photographers, I do have a Facebook group, and then I have a private coaching group too. I'll link all that in the description below if you want to work one-on-one with me. Thank you all for watching. As always, here's wishing you an amazing day. Go out and take some awesome pictures, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.